Well, good morning. I'd like to thank you and welcome you to this next installment of Growing Together with Christ. And last week I shared with you the first installment of a series of what I'm doing here at Lighthouse Baptist Church, and that is the blueprint of the Christian home. And I gave you those basic elements last week that is needed for the Christian home. And the last point that we gave last week were the people of the Christian home. And yesterday we began discussing those people from Ephesians chapter 5. And the first person that is mentioned in the listing of the people is the wife. And I want to read to you from Ephesians chapter 5, verse 22, where it says, "Wives, submit yourselves unto your own husbands as unto the Lord." So I want to talk to you just for a few moments this morning about what does it mean to biblically submit yourself as the wife of the home, to biblically submit yourself to your husband. And this is probably going to be the first of two parts, because there was many points that I gave yesterday. The first point is this, and that is, how is the wife to walk in a spirit of submission? How is the wife to walk in a spirit of submission? Let me read to you what the Amplified version says. It says, "Wives, be subject or be submissive and adapt yourselves to your own husbands as a service to the Lord." The biblical meaning of that means to arrange under or to subordinate, to subject, put in subjection, or to submit oneself or to obey. But you know, the word subject or submit does not just apply in scriptures to the wife. It also applies to everyone. It applies to us as citizens of the United States of America, or whatever country or state you live in, where it says that let every soul be subject unto the higher powers, for there is no power but of God, and the powers that be are ordained of God. Romans 13, verse 1. And then it says in one verse before, discussing about the wives being subject to the husbands, it says, submitting yourselves one to another in the fear of God. So, how is the wife to live in a spirit of submission? Number one, to be a godly wife, you must be submissive to the will of God. You must be submissive to the will of God. In other words, you simply obey the commands of God. So here's a question that I threw out to our congregation yesterday. What gives God the right to tell us what to do? You know, many of us, I'm sure most of us that are watching this and listening to this, have occasionally thought that of not regards to God, but in regards to others. Well, what gives that person the right to tell me what to do? Well, as we look at that for just a second, what gives God the right to tell us what to do? Well, it's very simply, God is God, we are not. God is the sovereign God of the universe, and we are not. God is the creator of the universe, and we are not. 1 Corinthians 10:31 says, "Whether therefore ye eat or drink or whatsoever ye do, do all to the glory of God." So the first thing underneath that about obeying God's will is we must examine ourselves for our salvation. Examine yourself for your salvation. 2 Corinthians 13:5 says, "Examine yourselves whether ye be in the faith. Prove your own selves. Know ye not your own selves how that Jesus Christ is in you, except ye be reprobates." So, let me ask you a question. Are you born again? Have you trusted the finished work of Jesus Christ? Have you placed your faith in the gospel of the death and burial and resurrection of Jesus Christ? The second step of obeying God's will is to obey out of love. Christ said, "If you love me, you will keep my commandments." Thirdly, it begins with a proper attitude. It begins with a proper attitude. You will come into your marriage and live throughout your marriage with an attitude of submission. When I taught junior high and high school, I would often tell my students, and when I coached sports teams, I would often tell my athletes that your attitude determines your altitude. If you have a lousy attitude, then you're going to stay at ground level. But if you have a great attitude of submission, a great attitude of wanting to succeed, a great attitude of victory, then you will soar in life. Well, that's going to be it of part one of that. And in just a few, maybe a day or two, I'll come back with you, and we'll go over part two of what it means to be a submissive wife. God bless you. Have a great day.